Come on in.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Ed. How you been?
Good. How you?
Pretty well. Pretty well.
In from the Lone Star State.
Yeah, long trip.
Oh man, you up for lunch? It's getting on that time.
I'm very hungry. Let's do it.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Let me drive.
So, what are you up for lunch?
How about a burger, man? That sounds pretty good.
You know, for some reason I knew you'd say that. You're Texas, trucks. What else do you think of from Texas? Steer.
Steer.
Right.
Well, and cowboys.
Cowboys. There you go. So
exactly.
Let's go kill a cow, huh?
That sounds like a plan.
Sounds good, man. So, what do you think of this GMC Terrain? It's sort of the modern SUV.
It's a modern SUV. It's about the size of a spare tire that you need on some of the big ones. So it works out pretty well, but it still gets you up and gives you that visibility. Plus, you still got the capacity here, so I can take a small cow if I need one. A calf. I can't get the full cow in here.
You still see the number one seller is a Ford F-150.
Right.
Dodges or Rams now. Number one seller is their truck. I think trucks still dominate.
Right.
SUVs dominate the General Motors lineup.
Right.
And so I think people are willing to sacrifice that expense for what you just talked about, visibility.
Yep. That visibility becomes your biggest key, because now you're sitting up there way up top and you give up your speed and your precision of our Corvette or something so that I can see everything that's coming at me.
So it's interesting, you are the director of our business process solution team here at Elemica. So part of that role is having a ton of interface with our clients and prospective clients out in the marketplace. So I'm curious, you talked about these trade-offs.
Right.
In the supply chain world, what kind of trade-offs are people really willing to make? I think ultimately people want to minimize those trade-offs.
Right.
But when they do have to make them, what are the biggest priorities? What are the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves?
So whenever you're looking at the trade-off, it's always effective versus efficient. Every one of our clients are doing that. So what we're seeing out there is you have to identify that client. Some are trying to, we actually have a few who have gotten so efficient, they're not serving their customers well. And then we've got others on the other side who are so effective that waste is everywhere. So the whole idea and the challenge for them is getting the visibility of where that occurs in their supply chain. Is it in the inbound transportation cycle? Is it trying to capture the demand to be able to run in their planning cycle? And so what we're seeing folks do is, yes, they understand and they're trying to get the concept of a SCON versus just I got a bunch of connected trading partners. They're trying to actually make a withdrawal from the national bank of the supply chain, because they've got so much inventory and capacity wrapped up within the supply chain. They don't know where it is, they can't find it, but their CFO can sure find it, and he's sitting there going, here's what our landed cost is. And so that's what we've started to see within our customer base and all our clients, is they're going, okay, I know I have to get to this operating network, but how do I get it to operate? And how is that different than me just connecting a few people and connecting a few more, so in the end they're all talking back and forth to my ERP package? So it's kind of like that next layer, so they can see what's actually flowing through the supply chain.
Is it fair to say then that balance between effective and efficient is ultimately the excellence that they're looking for? Is that the third E?
Yeah.
You mentioned SCON.
Right.
That's the supply chain operating network. It's essentially what we do. How does that message resonate relative to that balance between efficiency and effectiveness?
Right. The excellence part is really where we see it, is that how fast can I move back and forth between effective and efficient? Because you think about it in the product life cycle. The product life cycle, like when you buy your Apple iPhone, right? We're all happy about our i6 now, right? Right now, Apple's supply chain is extremely inefficient. It's got so much bubble, but it's effective to get us the i6. But if I look back at our i5, it's gone and it's extremely efficient. but it's not very effective because it's now all built with the capacity of the i6. So the more, and everybody says Apple is the excellent supply chain. What we're watching our clients do is struggle with trying to get to excellence because they all have these product life cycles that are all over the map, but they've designed their supply chain to operate one way. One way doesn't fit. So what they have to do is figure out, how can I take the visibility within a network and then use the apps that I've already bought that are sitting on the shelf, and many times they tell us to do the wrong thing because they're not connected in such a way as to give visibility what's happening through the tiers of the supply chain, and therefore it inhibits their processes to be able to go back and forth between efficient and effective for a given customer or for a given product. Because you'll see, when you deal with Walmart, it better be efficient, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But if you're dealing with smaller tonnages, let's say that's going line side to a automotive manufacturer, you got to be effective because they have to have that product in that tonnage now. And if many of our clients who come from a world where they used to ship rail cars at a time, they're having a hard time figuring out, how do I just do that small amount and get it right there, right where I need it?
So why have companies like Apple, if you will, embraced this new reality and the technologies that support that? Yet we see a lot of really good, high-performing companies hanging on to the sacred cow of EDI.
Right.
What's driving that stuckness, if you will, if that's a word, with a solution that's over 30 years old?
From my perception, it's the pain of the product life cycle hasn't come to some of these guys.
Okay.
So in the Apple, the product life cycle is very short. You saw the difference in time to market between iPhone 3, 4, and look at the 5 and 6. That's but a blip. Some of the other larger supply chains haven't really been impacted by the shrinking product life cycles. Once they start to do that, then we're going to see those guys coming very quickly to change this. So for example, GM, Ford, all the big Detroit guys used to take 4 years to bring a concept to market that we would call a car. Now it's 18 months. Those guys have changed a lot of it as they've gone through, and now as that continues to bubble through their supply chains, we find more people who are now being pressured to go, oh, I got in the chemical world, an engineered polymer no longer has a life cycle of 23 years. It's now got a life cycle of one product for the end customer, one product life cycle for the end customer. So if they're supplying GM, that product may only have a life cycle of 4 years instead of 20 years. So as that percolates through the entire ecosystem, that's when it'll start hitting the guys on the bottom who used to be nice and static, and now their world is in turmoil.
Well, hopefully our lunch is not in turmoil.
Exactly. This one's a pretty straight demand curve.
So you have this visibility component that is key. Supply chain operating network provides that. But I think one of the key components as well is the inherent flexibility, if you will, because I hear you saying that there's a malleableness that our clients need as well in order to be both effective and efficient.
Correct. Because if I've done an EDI connection with somebody, those usually take 4 to 6 months and a bunch of different people on the phone and testing back and forth. How can I act more like the high-tech guys who used to, when you get a product life cycle in the phone world, is 90 days. And all of a sudden I used to make it in China, and now this new one I'm going to make in Mexico, and some of it I'm going to put wherever I want to go. You've got to be able to plug and unplug your trading partners very, very quickly in a network. And that creates, if I've done, well, this is my EDI connection, it's been here for 10 years and it's stable, you're absolutely correct. But if you want to bring a new guy in very quickly, how do you do that? You've got to have a network that scales well and that has lowered the cost in terms of time to get people to trade back and forth, to get your forecast, to respond to your forecast, get your orders, and respond to your orders.
Delicious hamburger. Yeah. See you in the break room?
Okay, I'll catch you there.